Welcome back to Ben's Book Club. Today we are diving into the book How We Talk About Leadership by Tracy L. Brown. We're skipping all those traditional corporate platitudes today and getting straight into the raw, messy reality of the modern workplace. We're tossing out those polished Fortune 500 playbooks, the management theories that sound totally perfect in a seminar, but just completely fall apart in practice. Instead, we're looking at what actually happens on the ground. It's all about peeling back that professional veneer.
Okay, let's dive into this. Tracy L. Brown's work isn't your traditional leadership manual. It's much more like a mirror. Think of it like overhearing the unfiltered conversations people really have at lunch when they finally step away from their managers. The whole point of this explainer is to reflect that candid, highly guarded workplace chatter, because that's what truly defines a company's culture. We're capturing what people say when the executives aren't in the room. You know, those raw, vulnerable truths you only ever hear at the water cooler, or maybe in a private, encrypted chat, totally devoid of all that corporate spin and HR filtering.
Now, there's a massive tension in today's offices. Just imagine being a designer, a software developer, or a digital strategist right now. Your day-to-day work is deeply complex, right? It requires immense psychological safety, uninterrupted focus, and an environment where you can actually take creative risks. For these creative makers, their entire professional livelihood feels totally dependent on the specific leader sitting directly above them. As one anonymized creative maker put it, their growth, well-being, and fair treatment only happen if they have the absolute right boss in place. The stakes are just incredibly high when a single individual literally holds the keys to your mental health, your daily stress levels, and your pay trajectory.
That total dependency creates this fascinating disconnect between the wall art and the water cooler. On one side, you've got these highly crafted corporate values plastered all over the office walls. These are the "we're a family" or "innovation-first" posters that executive management just loves to point to during all-hands meetings. But on the flip side, you have the water cooler. That's the daily operational reality that actually dictates how work gets done, how mistakes are handled, and how people are treated in the trenches. And when the wall art doesn't match the water cooler chatter, well, trust breaks down entirely. The people building the actual products are experiencing a completely different culture than the one being promoted to the public.
And this brilliantly illustrates the culture clash hitting modern middle managers the hardest. Today's leaders are carrying an unprecedented, constantly expanding burden. They're expected to personalize their management style for every single direct report. They need to understand and navigate super complex mental health needs, proactively protect their team from all institutional stress, and use perfectly inclusive language at all times. Oh, and on top of all that, they still have to model absolute technical excellence in their craft and somehow navigate the business well enough to drive commercial growth and secure pay rises. We are effectively asking modern middle managers to act as therapists, project managers, life coaches, and HR shields all at once, which, let's be real, is a fundamentally impossible job description.
To capture the reality of this crushing pressure, Brown interviewed and surveyed 45 people globally across late 2022 and early 2023. These were mostly what we can call accidental leaders. You know the type: subject matter experts, brilliant digital talent, mid-level managers who got promoted simply because they were exceptionally great at their specific craft. They were top-tier coders or brilliant graphic designers. But here's the catch: writing elegant code and managing human psychology are two completely different skill sets. They were never actually equipped or trained to manage this overwhelming level of human complexity, making the transition to leadership incredibly jarring and, frankly, largely unsupported.
The result of that pressure cooker is total exhaustion. Mid-level managers are expected to absorb massive, company-wide issues simply by working harder themselves, completely lacking any real authority to change the system. That is the true exhaustion of constant context switching and emotional labor. These managers are essentially serving as human shock absorbers for the entire company. They're desperately trying to shield their teams from broken organizational processes and chaotic environments, but they don't hold the actual power, the structural influence, or the budget to fix the root causes. They are buffering the impact with their own well-being.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the fascinating generational reversal happening right now. The very generation that loudly demanded this highly empathetic, human-centric, higher expectation style of leadership is now sitting in the leadership seat themselves. And guess what? They're finding it incredibly difficult to deliver. The very people who rightfully criticized old-school command and control management are struggling to hold themselves to the exact standard they demanded when they were individual contributors. It's a profound irony. It turns out that demanding infinite empathy and flawless leadership from a boss is much, much easier than actually providing it when you're the one carrying the weight of the whole team.
This realization leads to a heavy, lingering question that plagues so many modern managers. Do I deserve this? Imposter syndrome is running absolutely rampant among these overwhelmed leaders. For decades, the corporate world treated a promotion simply as a reward for hard work. It was a status symbol. But as Brown's research clearly shows, a promotion is actually a massive transfer of responsibility for other human beings. When new managers realize they simply cannot meet the impossible standards of modern leadership, they start questioning their own competence. They wonder if they're a fraud, and whether they even belong in the role at all.
A huge part of why they struggle so much under this pressure comes back to their leadership blueprint. This is a person's earliest leadership memory, whether that was an incredible mentor who patiently guided you or a highly toxic boss who terrified you. These early memories unconsciously shape a person's current management behavior. When the pressure mounts, the emails pile up and the stress peaks, managers inevitably default to their blueprint. Even if they swore up and down they would never act like their worst boss, the sheer exhaustion of the job often causes them to unconsciously repeat the exact same toxic workplace dynamics they originally hated.
So we have to ask a deeply provocative question here. Is bad leadership a person problem or a design problem? Are these accidental leaders failing because they fundamentally lack empathy, skill, and drive? Or are they failing because the modern organization is structurally designed in a way that makes good leadership practically impossible? We're way too quick to blame the individual manager for burning out or snapping at a team member, when in reality, we might be looking at a massive failure of the structural environment they are operating within.
Let's see how this builds into completely rethinking how we view the organization. We have to move away from the hero CEO model. That's that deeply ingrained myth of the solitary hero's journey, where one charismatic individual swoops in and fixes everything through sheer willpower and vision. Instead, we must view leadership as an ecosystem. Think of it like a garden. If the soil is toxic, if the environment is chaotic, politically fraught, and under-resourced, even the most brilliant, highly empathetic leader will fail to grow anything. Good leadership absolutely requires a healthy, supportive structural ecosystem to survive.
And when we don't have that healthy ecosystem, we get specific systemic flaws that are easily masked as leadership failures. We're talking about things like unclear career paths, pay compression, where new hires are brought in making way more than loyal veterans, vague success metrics, and promoting people without adequate training. Companies wrongly expect individual managers to fix these structural problems entirely on their own. But if your team is deeply frustrated about a lack of a clear career path, no amount of one-on-one mentoring or emotional support from a mid-level manager is going to magically solve that. It's a systemic flaw that only the ecosystem can address.
The tension between what managers actually want to do and what the system forces them to do is incredibly stark. Leaders deeply enjoy one-on-one teaching, modeling their technical craft, and actively enabling their team's growth. This is the deeply fulfilling part of knowledge work leadership that drew them to the role in the first place. But the current system, it just drains them. It forces them into constant context switching, navigating avoided performance conversations, and bearing the crushing emotional load of providing constant psychological support. The current structural reality pulls them away from fulfilling work, leading directly to deep disengagement and professional cynicism.
So the crucial point is, how do we actually bridge this massive gap and start having productive, candid conversations about this tomorrow? Well, we can take a few actionable steps derived directly from this research. Step 1 is to use unfiltered quotes and real, raw feedback from your own team to spark authentic internal discussions. We have to stop relying on sanitized HR surveys that people are too afraid to answer truthfully. Step 2 is to openly acknowledge where the expectations placed on your managers are completely unrealistic. And step 3 is to redesign the leadership role itself to support the entire ecosystem, ensuring managers finally have the authority and the tools to match their massive responsibilities. I want to leave you reflecting on your own workplace ecosystem with a pretty provocative thought. If your team was having lunch without you today, what's the one complaint they'd all agree on? Think deeply about that and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.